Welcome to the Very Merry Life podcast, unfiltered, unscripted, and always relatable as fuck. I'm your host, Mary Hendricks, and you might know me from Instagram as That Relatable AF Mama, who hopefully feels like an old friend at this point. And if not, hang tight and join in as things get real, honest, and probably a bit too TMI as I, and the help of some amazing guests, dive into all things mom life, marriage, sex, and more. No experts, just real life moms talking real life things. So get ready to laugh lots, cry occasionally, and leave feeling seen, supported, and inspired. Making friends is hard enough as an adult, let alone as a mom, but all of that changes right here and now. So hang on, lean in, virtually clink whatever glass you have nearby with mine, and let's go. All right. Hi, Cait.
Hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. You know, it's 9 o'clock. It's 9:07 here. Kids are asleep.
I mean, this is moms living their best life. You've got tea. I've got a cocktail. Like, what more could we want? Our kids are in bed.
See, I feel like people listening will probably be like, wait, Mary has tea and she's not drinking. I just want you to know I have 2.5 glasses of wine already in me. And if I go to that third full glass of wine, I will not wake up tomorrow feeling very good. Like I can't anymore.
I feel like I'm at this point in my life. It's like I hit 30 and it's like, if I have one, I'm like, oh, well, have a little bit of a hangover now. It's like, oh my gosh.
Oh, it all depends. I swear it depends on like the day. It depends on on how much sleep I got, on what I ate.
Yep.
If period wise,
yep.
Or like, it's all different. So,
well, I'll make this the third for us.
Pretend. As long as you're sipping on something. That's what I always say.
Absolutely.
I always say that too, because I think some people come to my page and they're like, because I don't really talk about it, but I recently talked about wine mom culture, but I was like, I don't care if you don't drink. I really don't care.
Yep.
I do. But when I say that, it's not like I'm binge drinking. I'm just sipping on a glass or two and that's it. I drink way more in college.
Oh, yes. Oh God. Like, how did we live in college versus now? I mean, it's funny. It's like, I don't really drink that much now, but my husband's 9 years sober, but it's also like, he doesn't care if I do, but I just feel like inadvertently with that, like when I have one now, I'm like, whoo, top's coming off. Let's go.
That's awesome. That's awesome for him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's crushing it.
Yeah. That's really cool. And that's the thing. It's like, I commend people that do that. I mean, drinking is not great for you. So I'm all for like the benefits of not doing it. So I'm like, hey, by all means, I'm all about moderation with everything.
For sure. I'm the same way. I'm the same way, Mary. But after family photos, which I was telling Mary before we started recording, that was today. And it was 0 feeling degrees here in Minnesota. I'm like, I cannot wait to sit with you. And I'm having my cocktail tonight because that was a journey to get us matching and ready and rocking and rolling. And I'm like, all right, it's time for a drink and hang out with Mary on her podcast and have a fun time.
Heck yes. So before we get into it, let's introduce you to everyone. So go ahead and
let's do it.
Hello.
Let's do it. Okay. So my name is Cait Brown and I live right outside of Minneapolis. And I'm 31 years old and I have a 1.5-year-old named Ellie. And I've been married to my husband, Zach, for 4 years. Fun fact, we met because he was my waiter. At the time I was a teacher and I thought he was so good looking. And I was like, God, this waiter is so hot. And at the time I was like single as a Pringle, like hate it. I was like in the like, fuck guys, like stage of dating. And I left him my phone number on like a whim. And 2 days later he called me and we were like inseparable ever since. So that is how I met my husband. Yeah. So we've been married for 4 years now. And, like I said, I was a teacher for 4 years. Always thought I would do that. And then kind of started just kind of feeling stuck in that profession pretty quickly and pretty burnt out pretty fast. And then kind of segued my own path. And now for the past 7 years, I've run my own business, have my own podcast, love being a mom. It's definitely a trip. And I am just your typical, like, basic bitch. I love Taylor Swift. I love Bravo, love a good book. And I'm definitely someone who has like a good zest for life too. I'm like, we only get one shot on this earth. So if we're going to do it, like, let's freaking live it, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's why you and I have kind of kicked it off, and that I was on your podcast.
Yes.
Back in August.
Yep. A few months ago.
And that was great. It was great.
It was so good.
Great. Just like connecting. But I think I loved what you were doing. You know, I loved just like getting on there and kind of like,
it was just more empowerment. But I think the big portion of why I think you and I have connected more is just birth trauma.
Yes.
And I know that that's a big thing that you focus on. And I had shared that on my stories today, saying that was like, that's a big focus.
Yeah. Yep.
Just because I'm all about breaking down walls for Instagram. I hate feeling like anyone is ever alone. I think I told you that when we first like had our conversation on your podcast, and saying like, I started all of my stuff because I was in like such a low point of motherhood. Cause like you said, it is a trip.
It's a trip. Even if you wanted it forever, it's like, it's a trip, and doesn't matter how many books you read. Like,
no,
when your 18-month-old whips off her diaper and you're like, "Whoa, my kid, like what? Like this wasn't in a book." Like,
no, I'm all like, you're constantly learning. And I think I felt incredibly alone. I hate for anyone to feel that way, especially because it's so easy to just think that you're failing.
Yes.
All the single time, every single time you feel like you're failing. And that starts right at the beginning.
Right at birth. When you I mean, that was my experience with it.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to like dig into that, because I love that you do such a great job on your podcast and your platform for like not making people feel alone. And I feel like I've been on such a journey in the past 18 months, like confronting my birth trauma and kind of walking this path, because it did feel like I was so alone. And I think the reason I felt so alone in this was that I was someone who, I always knew I wanted to be a mom, but I was always terrified of the birth process. Like, what do we see on TV? We see women like losing their shit, screaming their heads off, or it's like Grey's Anatomy, like someone's getting like stabbed in a hallway to like have like a, you know what I mean? It's always scary. And so I felt so alone on this journey. And it was like, I was kind of searching for like, who else is talking about this? And I think part of the reason I felt so alone was I avoided, I can look back now and be like, anytime someone had a somewhat scary birth story, like when I was pregnant, like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Like, I didn't want to manifest that in. And then when I experienced it, I think I know I just kind of shoved it down, because I was like, what the fuck just happened? Yeah. And it took time for me to actually start to process through it. And it's like, man, if I had been, and you don't know what you don't know, right? Like when you're a mom, especially, probably you can say like mama 1, mama 2, mama 3, you don't know what's coming, but damn, it felt alone. And now that I have been really sharing about this and helping other women kind of work through it, and not from like a place of like, I know everything. It's like, girl, I'm on this journey too together. Like, let's figure this out. Here's things that are helping me. I cannot tell you how many people are like, I feel so less alone, or I went to therapy, or whatever, I went to go seek help, or wow, I can actually say this even was traumatic. And it's like, there's just so much power in our stories as women when we put it out there and make people realize that they're not alone.
The thing that's hard with birth trauma, and it's no different. I recently had a guest come on, and she was talking, she actually lost her son. And it was like a terrible, terrible story. And we were talking about, just loss in general. And I was saying to her, like, I think for me, like, so I lost a sister. I had a sister that passed away and things like that. And I remember like talking to my mom about it, and she was like, it's a club of people who have dealt with really terrible shit, and they don't know what to say to you, which I'm glad about. And that's what my guest actually said. She was like, I'm glad that no one knows what to say to me, because I don't want you part of that club. But she said, it's very hard to talk about this and find others to talk about this with, because it's something so scary that, it's a reminder that it can happen to others.
Absolutely.
And because of that, they don't want it. So like you said, with birth trauma, like I took, with the birth trauma I experienced with Cassidy, I was clueless. I had no idea. I didn't even prep anything that could happen. With Spencer, I tried everything in my power to make it a nice delivery. So I did hypnobirthing. Yeah. And when I did it, they were big about like taking out the negative stories and making it all positive, and anything you heard was negative
is your friend.
Pushed it away. And because of that, like I totally get that. And I always will say, like, especially for anyone listening right now, trigger warning, it's birth trauma talk. Like things like that are in here. So if you are pregnant or going to be pregnant or soon to be delivering, whatever it might be, like just tread lightly.
And also know that I always like tell people when we come into these conversations, I'm like, tread lightly and know that what happened to me isn't the norm.
No.
Like it's not the norm. And and I don't think anyone, I mean, you're pushing a baby out your vag or you're getting cut open. Like either way, like this shit is not easy. Right.
No.
And it's like, it's not going to be a walk in the park for anyone, but yeah, when it does happen to you, it's like, oh damn. Like that was shitty and hard and confused. It's so confusing. I think
it's
that
so
I don't
confusing,
know if you feel that
and
way
it's
too.
so hard to like find a space to talk about it because on one end, you want it to be known. You want people to be like, for me, I want my story to be out there because there are so many things that I learned from my experience that I wish I had known firsthand. I wish I had known better to advocate for myself. I wish I had known better to educate myself on the differences of what delivery can look like. I wish I knew what to say to the nurses and what to ask the doctors. And I wish I had just known all these things. And sometimes I feel like I want to share my story more so I can educate first-time moms. But then I also know that the story is attached to it where that would also get into their head where it's like, it's, kind of like the guest I had on whose son passed away. Her son passed away because he choked on a amber teething necklace.
Oh man.
And so she's now a huge child advocate for child safety and products and recalls and stuff like that. So she always says, like, I get people that say, like, I get so anxious coming to your page, or I have such bad anxiety. And she said, that's not my intention. My intention is just you don't know what you don't know, like you said. So she said, I just want there to be some knowledge out there. And what happened to me was just it was
like a freak accident.
Yeah. It's like a whole, like, just because it's possible doesn't mean it's probable type of thing. And unfortunately for her, it was possible. So it's just like, and like you and I, it was a possibility that came true. So
and I think that the biggest thing for me, with my experience, so here's kind of what happened to me was, I was the same way as you. I was really nervous about it. I really wanted to get ahead of it. So I was someone that, like, I don't think anyone, do some people take pregnancy lightly? I don't know. I was never one of those that's like, I accidentally got pregnant. I was like, oh no, like I was going to plan this shit and be ready to go. Yeah. And so when I got pregnant, I immediately was like very anxious about it because I was so afraid of this like birth thing. So I immediately got my butt into therapy to kind of like work through that. And also just like, I feel like when you are pregnant or you're becoming a mom, I know for myself, at least I was like certain shit that I've held on to in my life, it's time for me to like buckle up because I don't want to pass that on to this kid. And I didn't know if I was having a son or a daughter. I did a surprise with her gender. And so did that. And then I also did hypnobirthing. And I will say, I loved my hypnobirthing experience. And the biggest tenet that I always remembered from my hypnobirthing teacher, like course that I took was that you accept it, like you accept whatever turn your birth takes. Yeah. And so, that was something I kind of always kept in my mind. And I also was, I'd kind of educated myself enough on birth stuff to know that it doesn't always go the way that you think that it might. And so I feel like I was pretty open-minded going into the situation. My heart of hearts, my goal was like an unmedicated birth at a hospital. Cause I'm like, not that like ballsy to be like in like a birth center or like home birth or whatever. And, do it completely unmedicated. And that's not how my birth unfolded. My water broke on like a Thursday morning, but it didn't like my water's only broken. Yeah. It wasn't like a movie gush or anything. So I had to get admitted to the hospital and I was literally like a nothing, like I was like a negative dialed like centimeter, like it wasn't even a thing. So got admitted and, the cup, like literally that Thursday went by into Friday, that Friday went by, eventually came down to like late that afternoon. And if you're listening to this and you find yourself as like a perfectionist, I like to call myself a reformed perfectionist because it's like that. I feel like that doesn't ever fully leave you if you've been that way. And I remember my first real using that tenet of like accepting whatever turn my birth takes was when I got an epidural. Yeah. And I inwardly though, like I felt like a failure, which is so fucked up because, but I had this other idea in my head. And at that point I was like, well, I've already been here since Thursday, like morning, early afternoon, whatever. It's Friday night. Like if I'm going to push this thing out, I got to have some relief. Yeah. And so that happened. And then my water did eventually break. I pushed for a few hours. My daughter was sunny side up and completely stuck.
Oof.
And so that was, it was so frustrating to be like, I know nothing is happening down there. Like something should be happening. And eventually that led to the emergency C-section because I had an infection. My daughter's heart rate, I didn't know she was a daughter then, but her heart rate started to drop. And so, I mean, you go from hanging out to 12 people coming in and shaving your crotch.
Getting you ready to go. Yeah.
I remember they walked in and like, I still had my humor. I don't know if you were like, you probably were, Mary. I was like making a joke. I was like, haven't been able to see down there in a while. Thank you.
I think I said that. I think I said that to one of the nurses that came in. I was like, I don't know what it looks like down there.
Like, I haven't seen down south in a while, but thank you.
Yeah, no, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And my C-section itself was totally fine. I mean, best moment of my life was hearing it's a girl and like seeing, this baby that you've been waiting to see. And then she was very quickly whisked away. She had some complications and I, had a uterine bleed and had surgery for an additional about 2 hours, lost about half my blood volume. And that's where my trauma really kicked in because it was just so scary.
Did they have to put you fully under?
No, I was awake and I never passed out. Like my midwife like ended up being like a huge advocate for me and staying with me. And overall too, I feel like in my birth experience going south, I never felt pressure certain way. Like I know some people are like, oh, I wish I would have advocated. I feel like I advocated pretty well. Like my cards just ended up this way. But and so for me, the trauma part, it's like, obviously I knew right away, but it truly was like probably when my daughter was about 7 months old that I was like, something's not right. Like, I feel like I am the literal worst at this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever experienced this, Mary, with like postpartum depression, but for me, it felt like I could hear the negative thoughts and I knew that they were not true. I was like, no, you're a really good mom, Cait. Like you're doing a good job. But in my heart of hearts, it was like, I could not get Skippy off the wheel and I could not stop the thoughts.
Yeah.
So I did seek help. I like went to a therapist. I got on meds. It helped me immensely, but it's really been, I'd say, I'm 18 months postpartum now. It's really been the past, I'd say even 6 months where I've truly realized like I'm a little fucked up from my daughter's birth, like this, and feeling shame around that and feeling guilt around that. Cause it's like, how do you explain to someone that the coolest, best, most empowering day of your life is also something that is triggering as fuck? And when I go into a Home Depot and the lights are too bright, I have a visceral reaction. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's why I think I'm so glad we're having this convo. Cause it's like, it's so nuanced. Do you know what I mean? It's like so hard to explain to someone who's not been through it.
Well, because everyone that talks to you, if you tell that to someone, most people are, well, at least they're okay. At least you're like, that's, you're immediately just put in saying like, oh, well, everything turned out fine. Like I mean, I know, like the postpartum care of a mom and
so bad.
Oh, it's awful.
So bad.
It's awful just to make sure that like, and it's what the 6 week appointment that everyone talks about that just to make sure you get the write off to go fucking have sex again. And then after that, that's it. Like I remember like, I loved my midwife practice. Like I still do. One of my midwives actually follows me. So
it's amazing.
And she'll message me from time to time. Whenever she does, I'll message her back and be like, I miss you. Like, I miss you.
Well, cause you like bond. You're like, they've seen like, things that no one will ever see.
No, one of my girlfriends is pregnant. She's due in December and I pointed her in their direction and she goes, and every time she goes now, cause she's
that's amazing.
Close to due date. She'll be like, I saw this so-and-so. I saw so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, tell them I say hi.
Like, they're my girls.
I'm like, tell them I say hi. But, they're midwives, they're great, but they're still stuck to the standards of practice. Totally. And it's just, you go to your 6 week appointment. And after that, like, and I had a guest on that we talked about mom rage and postpartum depression. She struggled big with postpartum depression. And I told her, I said, I'm so incredibly proud that you answered that Edinburgh,
the little paper that they give you at the,
She answered it honestly. And that's how they were able to help her. And I was like, good for you for doing that because I would have lied.
And the best is when like, even now they're like that question. It's like, I feel like I'm on top, like I'm more on top of things. I'm like, fuck, I'm never on top of things anymore. I'm a mom.
I'm like, no, I didn't see, and I didn't even deal so much with postpartum depression. I dealt with postpartum anxiety bad.
Yeah.
This time.
Well, and actually it's funny you say that because, and I feel like we should have a conversation even on here about like the advocacy piece of like, what can you do? Like if you are listening to this and you're pregnant or you're newly postpartum, or even if you're not newly, like I'm 18 months postpartum, it's like, you can still advocate for yourself. But it takes a little bit of grit, I think. And that's what I've really learned here is, that, like you said, it's like our system is just not set up for women to get appropriate postnatal care.
No.
And, a big thing for me is, my husband and I, we are not quite ready to go for number 2, but the clock is getting closer to that than it, was a few months ago. And so for me, sort of like before I had my daughter, like, okay, certain things that I needed to get my shit together on, like I don't want to give to her. It was the same thing here for me where it's like, well, if I want to be pregnant again, I don't want to be incredibly anxious or, for me, I'm just, and I've been told I'm a great candidate for a VBAC and all these types of things, but it's like, I'm so scared again, it's like, I feel like I'm back in the same place. And so, if you're listening to this and you find yourself in the same place, I just first and foremost want to say you're not alone and you're not like, I know this sounds dumb and it's probably because I'm an Enneagram 3, but that's like, you're not dumb for feeling this way. Like sometimes I felt so, like I said to my girlfriends one day, I'm like, it's weird because I'm like ashamed in a way, or was, I'm not now that I'm working through it in therapy and stuff, but I'm like, why am I more fucked up now? Like but it's like time actually doesn't heal all wounds. It doesn't. You've got to advocate and you've got to do stuff for yourself. And, so the way that I have found that to kind of help me through this healing process, and this is something that I'm really passionate about talking with women about, and this is what I've really been sharing on my social media lately, and with even a lot of my clients, I work in the health and fitness space, is, first thing is going and finding a pelvic floor specialist.
Yep.
Part of my trauma was in my head, but I have had some physical pain still postpartum, up where like my C-section incision is, where I have built up scar tissue. So it's like, call your insurance company and find someone. It's not too late. And it's been such a great experience for me to go to that pelvic floor specialist. And I will also say, again, things I didn't know, it's like an emotional release. Have you ever done pelvic floor therapy, Mary?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you, when you did it, like the first time, like have like an emotional reaction to like the physical piece of it?
I have to like think back because it was a while ago. I need to go again almost.
Seriously, yeah, I bet you do after third. I feel like every woman does.
I think I was more like relieved because I was in such pain when I went the first time after I had Spencer.
Okay.
And for some reason, I actually don't feel any of the same pain anymore. After him, I had such weird pain when I was pregnant with him, like in a spot of my tailbone that I even to this day, I cannot explain how it hurt.
It's so weird, isn't it?
And it was internal. So she actually had an internal exam, and she was able to pinpoint where it was through an internal exam, which was like the weirdest thing because I never would have expected that. And I remember her explaining that as she was like putting on gloves to like essentially.
Yeah, you're basically get fingered for an hour. That's
and she did. And she was like, and as like for everyone hearing that, you're like, wait, what? Like,
no, literally.
She went to like a spot by like she went in and like pushed down towards where my butt is and was able to hit such a spot where I was like, that's exactly where I feel pain.
It's incredible.
And it like, no one thinks about any of that stuff. No. I need to still go get reparative surgery. So I'm like waiting on when the hell I'm going to go.
Yeah. Well, look what your body, I mean, you've brought.
I'm going to go get a new designer vagina.
Yes. Girl, jazz it up. Get some bedazzles on it. Like, let's go. I'm
so excited. I'm like,
I love it.
I just don't feel like getting my vagina cut again.
No.
But I asked my doctor, I was like, can I do this while I'm having a C-section? He was like, no.
He's like, there's a lot going on already down there.
Yeah, he's like, we don't want to add to that. And I'm like, okay.
We'll be back after a quick break. Eye-Opening Moments podcast are real-life stories of adversity, encounters, and perspectives. They are moments that can lift your spirits, give you some food for thought, or move you. For the introspective mind that likes to reflect, discover, and find solutions or meaning in a complex life, listen to Eye-Opening Moments podcasts.
You're like, damn it, dog.
Numb. No.
But I do think that's like what, I mean, now that I'm 18 months postpartum, and the pelvic floor specialist I found here in Minneapolis is phenomenal. But it's one thing that made me feel so good about it. And maybe if you have a listener on here who's in a similar situation, like it's truly not too late to get help. Like I thought I was going to continue to have this pain, and I've already made so much progress. And it's the reason I bring up the emotional component though was at the same time, I realized I'm pretty fucked up from this post. It wasn't the C-section itself, but my surgery afterwards is what really gave me the trauma. So I've been doing EMDR therapy. Have you ever heard of that before?
I've heard of it. I don't know what it is. I've heard of it though.
Yeah, it's like really interesting. Like it's therapy where I'm gonna mess up the name, but it's like something about getting like your eyes moving. So like you do like a series of like tapping while you go straight to the trauma, like you retell the story, and the therapist like helps you walk through the scenario with like either tapping or you like follow your eyes. And basically the point of it is, if you have trauma in your, you got your brain, your prefrontal cortex is your decision maker. It basically moves the trauma from the front of your brain to the back, so that it's not like, oh, I'm in Home Depot and I'm having a fucking panic attack because the bright lights are making me think of this surgery. Right. But she had told me, this therapist, like, you just be like conscious when you go to pelvic floor therapy that you might have an emotional reaction. And I was like, and I'm not like a super over emotional person.
Yeah.
And the first time that we went internal with my pelvic floor specialist, I literally got in my car and I started sobbing.
Yeah.
But it was also, again, like so empowering. And if you're listening to this, I don't want someone to be like, God, this is a downer like topic. It's like, you have power. You can empower yourself, and you can be a victim or you can be a victor. That's really how I look at this situation now. And it's like, I can take all these pieces and chalk it up to like a terrible experience, or I can take all these pieces and realize how fucking strong it makes me, and how much it really taught me about surrendering to like a higher source, God, whatever. It's like, you know what? Again, like I said in the beginning of this, like I got a zest for life. It's like, shit, we don't know which way that could have gone. Like at the end of the day, I'm not going to live in pain. I refuse to stay emotionally traumatized from this. And I want to bring another kid into this world. And I don't want to bring that next child, even though they're not even existent right now, because I got a cocktail in my hand, but it's like, I want to bring them in a good headspace as like a better, stronger version of myself. And so if you find yourself in this situation listening to this, it's like, you've got the tools. It's going to take some effort. Like no one's going to hand it to you, but it's like, damn, like you're going to look back someday and be so proud that you did something about it. And that's really how I look at this.
Well, and I think another thing too is like, so after Cassidy's delivery, because that was the shit show.
Yep.
That sucked. So after her delivery, I was adamant about getting my redemption. Like I wanted.
Oh yeah. So tell me, because this is where I'm at, Mary.
So
and I don't want to put too much
my
pressure on a redemption either. So it's like, fuck.
Yeah. So I technically, because it wasn't a C-section, it was a vaginal delivery with her.
Yep.
She had shoulder dystocia. So for anyone that isn't aware, so she had shoulder dystocia. Essentially, her shoulders got stuck. Her head was out, but her shoulders were wedged. So it was a code blue situation. All I know is that it was during shift change. It was a million people in the room. I was like low on oxygen. So they were putting an oxygen mask on me. They were trying to dislodge her. I don't even know how long it took, but all I know is that she came out, and it was like, that was another, like how you mentioned, like you see movie scenes.
Yes.
And this baby came out, not like crying. She didn't cry. She didn't do anything. It was like a limp, like a prosthetic doll covered in blood.
Wow.
It was just like, I'll forever remember that.
Yep.
I can see it now. And they came out and they immediately took her to the side. And then I just kept saying to Kevin, I kept repeating, Kevin, why isn't she crying? Why isn't she crying? And I thought my world crumbled, like just was done. And that was like, at that moment, it was like, oh my God, like that's my story of all this. And I was like amazed. And then finally she started crying, and then she NICU stay, all that stuff. But so with that history, so with the shoulder dystocia incident, it's unpredictable. It's like 1 in 250 births. Like it's rare.
Wow.
I might be wrong on that statistic, but I want to say it's like 1 in 200, 1 in 200.
Yeah.
And because if you have one already, you're more likely for it to happen again.
Interesting.
So because
and terrifying.
So because knowing that, like your chances are the studies out on shoulder dystocia really vary whether or not it is medical error. And they don't know whether or not it is like because the doctor is pulling, or not advising you to push properly, or they don't know if it has anything to do physiologically, like if it's actually your pelvis. They don't know if it's baby positioning. Like there are so many
lots of different things.
Yeah, schools of thought on it. And I researched all of it. But the one thing that I kept seeing consistently was that there is zero reason why they should recommend a C-section after a shoulder dystocia incident, because there's no reason to say that a C-section would be the safer option. And that they actually recommend going all natural, unmedicated, because it allows you to get in better birth positions and things like that.
Yep.
So because of that, I was like, fuck this. I'm not getting a C-section. For some reason, I was so dead set against C-sections because it's the same narrative. And I'm only saying this because I keep seeing it. And I want to like just bring a different side of it. Is like, there's such a different narrative of like, these doctors are like these little weasels that just want to get home and they don't give a shit. And they're just, let's just give her a C-section because I have to be like, I don't truly think that's what's happening. It might be, but I don't truly think that's
that was not my experience. I do think they get I mean, it goes both ways, but I do think they kind of get a bad rap. I mean, in my experience, my doc, like when they eventually brought in the OB, she was like, I'm sorry, I'm like here. Like, I know this isn't what you want, but
no, it's time to talk. Like, and that's the thing. But I think that's an important thing. That's why I worked with midwives the second and third time around. But, I worked with them and I went to them because I was specifically about like, I'm going to do it unmedicated. This is what we're going to do. And we made a plan together. And then at 37 weeks, my son was, breech.
Oh my gosh.
Breech. So I went in for a OBGYN consult to go see if I could get a version, see if I could flip him. And at that time he was actually head down. So there was zero reason as to why I would need a version. So, but because I was at the OB when they were confirming it, he was like, well, he's head down now. So, then you're good. But he said, but while you're here, I took a look at your file. He said, I just want to talk to you. And he said, because he was trying to explain this whole shoulder dystocia incident. And I like my OB a lot. Again, I use midwives, but they're paired with an OBGYN.
Yep. That's mine is too.
He just said, he was like, shoulder dystocia incidents. He was like, first of all, New Jersey is a very litigious. Is that the word? Litigious state.
Yes.
We are sue happy. Everyone will sue the shit out of each other. And he said, so for New Jersey being as litigious as it is, I am out of most providers in the state, one of the only few providers that will deliver a breech baby.
Wow.
And he said, in a breech incident, there's a 1% chance of a baby's head getting stuck. And he said, and that 1% is enough to scare most doctors in the state of New Jersey.
Wow.
But I will do it. He said, with a shoulder dystocia incident, you have a 15 to 20% chance of your baby's shoulders getting stuck again. He said, so if a 1% is scaring most doctors, think about what 15 to 20% would do.
Yeah.
He said, and I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you right now, that scares me. And when he said that, my husband and I were sitting next to each other. And I knew. And I remember I kind of was just like, I went home. I have a story because I had my Instagram at the time, but it wasn't big. And I have a story and I just got home and I was explaining and I started crying.
I believe it.
I was like, I don't want this, but I knew like the moment he said that, Kevin had just as much PTSD over my delivery.
Yes. My husband does too.
As I did.
Yeah.
So like, I think
because they watch us.
Yeah.
They're there for us. It's like, shit, they are not.
Yeah. So when he heard that, he was like, I think you should get a C-section.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we did. And to be honest, my C-section with my son was great.
That's great to know though.
My midwives were wonderful. They still came with me and they were in the room with me and they made sure that the baby was brought to me and I got skin to skin while they were sewing me up. And it was still just a special moment as it could be. I made sure that I wasn't loopy. I made sure I talked to the anesthesiologist. I made sure I talked to my team. I still printed out a birth preference sheet.
That's great.
I was still able to do all the things that I had hoped for. There was obviously differences and things like that. And then with Haley, even better. I think Haley was actually a little bit more anxious because I knew.
You're like, wait a minute, third time.
Yeah, it was like more just like a third time, but it was more like, I think because I had two kids back at home, I think it was like my anxiousness getting in my head of being like, this shit, something could go wrong.
Yeah.
So it was like, it's terrible that way, but Cause that's like the big thing is with the vaginal delivery versus C-section. And I always try to say that to like my friends who have said C-sections. They're like, well, I feel like I took the easy way out, or I feel like I failed my baby for like whatever. Vaginal deliveries, your baby is more likely to get injured or the worst case scenario.
There's a lot of tumbling and turning that's got to go.
Statistically, that's what can happen in a vaginal delivery. In a C-section, the mother is more at risk in a C-section. So I said, you literally put your life on the line for your baby. So I said, please do not feel like a failure if you had a C-section, because it's a ballsy thing.
Yeah, it really is. And it brings me so much comfort to hear you say that it went better for you that time, because that's something that I'm really working through here now with my PT and the therapist. And my mindset now is, I have that idea of a redemption birth in my mind, and it's so different from what I initially wanted as my initial like birth hope, which was that like unmedicated birth, whatever. And for me, the only thing I ever wanted was the golden hour. Like I was so afraid of birth going into it. And I was so anxious to find out if we were having a boy or a girl. Like, when all these turns and twists, and I have an episode on my podcast too, I go pretty in depth with Ellie's birth story, but that's all I wanted was to hold her. And it's the last thing I got. Like I didn't hold her first. And then I was just like fucked up in this surgery, and my like dark postpartum thoughts always led back to the fact that I didn't hold her first. And I
did. And that was like the only thing that
it's so good to know that you can like advocate for yourself to like make that happen. And that's what my PT said. She's like, in the future, she's like, part of what you need to work through too. She's like, you're a great candidate for a VBAC or whatever in the future. But she's like, and this, again, if you're listening to this and maybe you're in a similar spot as me, it's like, come up with a plan so that if it does go to C-section in the future, how do you make it less triggering? How do you make it so that you do get those moments? And I love that you say that it was so positive, because it's like,
I loved it. No,
again, I'm not even pregnant.
Because I really do. I loved my C-sections, and I will easily, if I have another baby, I don't know.
Yeah, girl,
if I do, then I will, obviously do a C-section again, but I loved it. It's hard.
Yeah. Recovery's
not
no
hard.
Joke. Yep. But damn, how cool are women that we can like either push a baby out of our vag or get cut open, and we're still just like, now I'm gonna like.
I think that was the one thing I think cool. I realized. Yeah, after this third baby, like I have a video. I think I took it in the hospital. You can see. I'll have to find it and send it to you. But
yes, please
see
do
it on the video, and it's me holding one of like the hospital cups in my hospital gown right after, probably like a few hours after the C-section in my hospital room, and you could tell I had just gone through it because I was pale. Like you could tell that I went through blood loss of some sort.
Yep.
And but I think the audio was like, why should I listen to you? And it was like for anyone telling me that what I just went through like wasn't badass. Like, because I think after this time I was like, this is really fucking cool. Like I literally was wide awake, and you took a baby out of me, and I was like,
yes.
Fuck yeah. I was like, fuck
and
yeah,
those are the pieces that you have to find. It's like, if you've gone through a traumatic birth, it's like, and it's not toxic positive, like toxic positivity. It's like, no, like you have, like you are a warrior, no matter how you do this. Like if you brought a kid earthside, you are and that's like my thing is like, I always say this to like moms to bees or like women I work with. I'm like, you want to sit here and tell me you doubt yourself? You don't think you can reach this goal, or you don't think you can do that? Like, you are a mother, you have had a kid, you have done some of the hardest shit in the world, and you don't think you can accomplish XYZ? Like, come on now.
A lot of it too, like we all boils down to like, we always are rating ourselves on the tiniest little steps of this entire journey. And that's the thing that like, I get that, but like for us, like we're rating ourselves whether or not we can and cannot get pregnant, or then the type of delivery we're getting, and then it's like
if you can breastfeed or not, or if they're sleeping, it's just like always yes.
But at the end of the day, like, and I don't mean to like squash that, because I know how important all those things are. But at the end of the day, like I now kind of, because I'm like third rodeo and like seeing my kids now, like I want my kids to be happy and healthy. Yeah. So like whatever way that means. And like, I don't honestly think I'm going to look and be like, at the end of the day, do you look at like a Jeffrey Dahmer of the world and be like, his mom had a C-section. I'm like, no one's giving a shit about that. Like, that's what I think about. As terrible as that is, I'm like, how do I make sure my kids aren't assholes and terrible people? And it's not anything to do with that. It's like, that's a pressure I'm putting on myself. Of, I don't know, where this idea of like a perfect body or a perfect delivery.
Well, it's just society.
Well, it's like this perfect like thing. And I think it, like, I have my grandmother, and she passed away years ago, but a story of hers, like my dad is an only child, but right before my dad was born, she actually was pregnant, and she was in labor for 72 hours, and they let her push for like a day and the baby died. And she essentially just like, that was like in the 50s, early mid 50s. And I think about it, I'm like, if they normalized C-sections back then, they would have gotten the baby out. Like, I think about stuff like that, where I'm like, you know, everyone kind of tries to get back to square one of saying like, you know, we were born to birth babies. We were born to do that. I'm like,
and you're still birthing a baby if it's a different way.
It is. And I said, and like, but there were women way back that died during childbirth.
100%.
Childbirth was a very scary thing to go through years ago. So for me, I'm like, thank God this is my situation today, because there's options, and your birth is just as successful. Whether someone has to help you or not, it's just as successful. I talked about this the other day with like accepting help, and that's a different situation, but I don't know why we grade ourselves on a success or a failure if someone else has to assist us.
Yes. And that's so good, Mary. And it's so funny that you say the thing about like someday when we're old, because that was what I said to my first therapy appointment with this woman. I was like, you know, when I look at the grand scheme of life, when I'm like 85, like my day that I gave birth to my daughter is an amazing day, but it's a very small day of my life. So I'm like, how can this like I love that day and I hate this day and all this stuff. And she's like, it's just another day, and it's an important day, but she's like, you're gonna have a lot of other important days too. And you got to remember that. So it's like, it's not going to be the end all be all, but I do think it can derail you if you stay stuck in that place. And it's like, even if you had a kid 10 years ago and you're just like, you know, have those moments like I have where I'm like, oh, I didn't hold her first. It's like, but trust me, that girl knows I'm her mom when she's not saying dad.
Or I did hold her first, or well, technically the nurse. No, they brought her over to me pretty damn quick, but I held her first, and my third is like stuck on me like white on rice. And, she just said dada today. So I'm like,
like, okay, great. Thank you so much.
Like, yeah, it's fine. I'm just losing my social life and losing sleep because of you, but it's fine. It's fine.
She's like, but mom, I literally have the cutest, chubbiest cheeks ever. You can't get mad at me.
I'm like, it's fine. No, but it's true. I think it's, it really is like, we think about all these things in such minute things. And I get it, because we've amplified it. Like this whole, it's a mom war thing. It's literally, there are mom wars every single day, whether it's like how you got pregnant, or to how you delivered, to how you fed. And like, I said that the other day with a friend of mine who on Instagram, who got shamed a little bit for formula feeding. And I said, if only people put this much fucking emphasis into the next 17 years.
Exactly.
Of this baby's life. Like, why is that such an important first step when like you could be breastfeeding for this entire first year, and then feeding them fucking chocolate,
goldfish.
Like all McDonald's, like
they're gonna have Ritz crackers.
Like, like are you not focusing on that? Like, I don't do not understand the mentality of like, where we're nitpicking what makes a good mom based off of these minute details, where like,
and I think we do it to ourselves, even like, you know what I mean? Because we do live in social media, and that's where it's like, what you're doing is so amazing. Because it's like, we have to just like stop doing that shit to ourselves. Like, if your kid's not perfect, like, you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like, yes, other moms definitely shame, because Susie, Sally with the fake fucking Instagram account is going to come comment her stuff and tell you what she thinks. But it's like, we got to stop doing that to ourselves too. Like, if your baby doesn't perfectly follow the taking care of baby's course, like, you're not a bad mom.
No.
Your kid.
Well, I just had a guest. I had a guest on Thursday. She's incredible. I'll actually send you her account.
Yes, please do.
An incredible guest for you. She's wonderful. My God, her interview was so good. But she was saying that, you know, you forget that your kids are individuals. Like that you forget that what you're raising is not you. Like you're not raising a clone. Like you're not raising a spitting image of yourself.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're raising an individual,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to let loose where like our parenting is going to be different for this individual. And like this motherhood does not need to like, I'm a big firm believer that motherhood is way harder than it needs to be. Like I
Yes.
think we are putting
completely agree.
too much like I don't know. We're taking
Well, because it's not mothering that's hard. It's like when you like, this is kind of how I always think about it. I'm like, it's not mothering that's necessarily hard. It's all that external shit that you put on yourself that makes it hard. It's like at the end of the day, like, well, it is hard to love them when they're like, you know, doing like the really fast twirly spins with the diapers, but it's, you know, it's like, it's not hard to love your kid, but it's hard to love your kid when you're putting like pressure on yourself every 5 seconds.
Yeah. But here's the thing is like when they're running away from you with diapers, does it like, or like any of that stuff.
Oh,
like,
I laugh, but still.
Yeah. But if you think about it, like it wouldn't, it's totally that extra noise because when you're doing that stuff, it's like, it's all the extra noise of like seeing your little one run away because, you know, it goes through your head being like, are other kids doing this? Is it just my kid doing this?
Yep.
What's wrong with my kid? What am I doing wrong? Like, it's always just something like that where you're like, you're just in your head constantly. And we're sweating the small stuff, literally with all motherhood stuff where I'm like, and that's what's making us cranky. Like it's the thing
yes.
It's like,
well, it's like, you cannot be perfect. And again, as a recovering perfectionist for myself, it's like, you can't hate yourself into loving yourself. And it's like, you can't nitpick yourself into being a good mom. Like you're a good mom by showing up every day and doing the best that you can. Same thing with birth. Like, you know, it's like you do the best thing that you can do in that moment, and the chips are going to fall where they may. And it's like, how do you pick them up and keep going forward? That's really what it's all about, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and I think the biggest eye-opening thing for me is just being a mom in general. I look at my kids. I said this the other day on my stories. I said the moms have the biggest gift ever in that we are the ones that are going to elicit change. Like the change is starting with us. Moms that's our power. We get to change it right now. Like literally you get to decide how your kid is going to live their life in hopes that they pass that on to their kids and their family. And then it just keeps on going. And
so good.
We want to break cycles and we want to create them. And I hope that I'm creating good ones. And that's all my kids. So I look at certain things with me where I'm like, if my daughters one day have babies, like if they have a C-section, I want them to know that that's like a badass thing. Yes. And they didn't fail. And if they have to formula, then fuck yes. Great. I will be the first one there giving them a bottle and helping them and making sure that they know that that's the best they can do. If they lose their shit one day on their kid, because they will, I want them to know that that's okay because they saw me kind of do the same and then apologize for it. Like, you know, I think we put all this where I don't want to be perfect for my kids. Like I
because it's not realistic.
No, it's not. It's the one job that I truly do not plan on doing perfect or wanting to be perfect, because if I were, what good would that do my kids? Because they won't.
That's such a good perspective, Mary.
So
I love that.
If I did, then shit, they're like, I don't want that. I want them to see a human that I'm Mary and I just happen to be a mom of 3 and I'm trying to figure this shit out.
And we're lots of other things too. You know, it's like, we can't forget that too, because I think that's super important too, that they see it's like, mom is a huge piece of this, but you're also an avid reader, or you're a really good friend, or you're, you know, an awesome, you know, most days awesome wife.
No, well,
right?
that's with the guest again. Like, I'll send you her name. Her name's
I would love that.
But she talked about that and she said it's about finding joy.
Yes,
she's in her 40s, but she talked about like talking to her friends, and she has talked to women, and she said, when was the last time you truly felt joy? And you cannot name a person.
I love that. I'm trying to think what my answer would be.
Yeah. You can't name your kids. You can't name your husband. You can't name a family, like a name. You can't name a person.
Ooh, I love that.
And she said, most women can't say it. And I think that's
really powerful.
Yeah. She said that to I think she said, I'm trying to think of the example. She said that at like a conference or something, and a woman came up at the end and she was in her 70s. And I think the woman said to her that the last time the answer that came to her head was in high school, and she was in a political, a debate team.
Oh my gosh.
And she loved it. And she said, well, why aren't you doing that? She said, well, I am. She said, you're damn right I should be. And so this woman ended up joining like city councils, like town councils, and like
okay, that is
board
precious.
meetings and stuff like that, where she was like, this is what brings me joy. And it was like it was a very like, just
that is so cool
talking to her. And I was like, that's a very good point, because we get swallowed up in this whole motherhood thing where we just completely forget that like there's more to us. And I another thing I don't want my kids to see, I never want my kids to look back and be like, my mom lost herself because of us.
Yes. I
like,
feel very passionately about that too.
Yeah. I don't want my kids
because it's so easy to lose yourself in this, but it's like, you're a whole person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just a whole person that's going through a role shift. Like, you'll always be mom. I'll always be Mary. You'll always be Cait. Like, it's always going to be there. And it's important for us to honor that side just as much. And if not for us, and for our kids, because
absolutely.
Again, it's a lesson. I hope my kids, if they have kids one day, that they know that as well. Like, I hope that they have their kids and they're like, realize that they have to take care of themselves too. And, so.
Yeah. I always think that too. I'm like, I hope that someday when she's like 25, she wants to like come back and go to brunch with me. And like, maybe we can like drink some like mimosas at brunch or whatever it is. But it's like, I also know like, I've really got her for 18 years. I'm going to do my damnedest to like raise the best person I can, be a full human being myself while I do that. And, it's like, she's going to do what she wants to do, because I'm trying to raise an adult ultimately.
Yeah. Well, and that's a big thing too.
That's the thing.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's a terrifying thing. Cause like, I think we put in all this work, and a lot of times as parents, we look at our kids as a reflection of us. But at the end of the day, they're adults. They're going to do what they do. You can pour your heart and soul, and they're human, living, breathing people.
Yep.
And their blood, but they're not us. So it's, I mean,
Mary, not that we've ever done embarrassing shit that our parents would just not love that we did.
Never.
We are the perfect examples of those raised humans. Duh.
Yeah,
just kidding. Like, we just said we're like perfection.
I'm just like an angel of a human being.
I've never done anything embarrassing. I can't relate.
Well, hopefully,
actually, I do something embarrassing every single day of my life. But
what's something? Do you have something that your mom and dad don't know that you did?
Oh my God, I was so naughty. Like, I'm the one who like tells my friends, who's like, my parents, God bless them, love them so much, but like they were strict, like they were the more strict parents. So like, my mom does know this now, but this is a funny story. So like she wouldn't let me wear thongs, and I was like mad. And so I would go and buy thongs, and then I cut a big hole in the box spring of my bed. And I'd like do my laundry myself. I'd hide the thongs under there, like put them on in the morning, because I didn't want to like be the one with like granny panties when I was like 14 in the gym. And she found them one day and left me a note underneath that said, "Nice try." She did eventually find that one out. But I was, that's the thing too, is like my parents were strict and they were amazing. And like at the end of the day, if I truly needed them, they would have like come and helped me. But I'm like, I feel like you can't be too strict either, because if you are, your kids are just sneaky as F. Because that's how I was. And I was the youngest too. So it was like, I was just really sneaky about everything. So that's my good, like, so dumb, but like, I just like didn't want to be the one with the granny panties.
No, I was,
go get my, what was it? Wet Seal or wherever sold them. Do you remember what?
Oh no. Was it Wet Seal?
No, or I can't remember.
What was it? God.
Victoria's Secret, of course, like the 5 for 25 back in the day.
Aeropostale.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I think I got mine from Wet Seal. Is Wet Seal even still a thing? I don't know, but I did embarrassing things.
I forgot about that store.
I was a sneaky Pete.
Yeah.
I hid alcohol in boots, all that kind of stuff. Like used to go and steal like all the clear alcohols and like make
water. And
us millennials though, it's like I used to like hide in a field and drink in a field, and
my brother always
here to tell the tale.
we had like in our basement, we had like the drop ceiling. I think that's what it was.
Yes.
Push up on it. And we used to hide like all our alcohol in there, but also like all of our pot.
There you go.
And stuff. And my brother was 2 years ahead of me. And I think one day my dad had to fix a pipe or something, and he found like a bunch of pipes and like bongs.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
They were mine. But they were mine. And you have to understand this about me. I was like a cheerleader. I was just like a straight.
I was
was blonde.
Yep.
And I was like, I hung out with a good crew. I never got in trouble.
Same.
Like,
Well, those are the
so
ones
when
to
I
watch
say
out
this,
for,
it
'cause
sounds like I was a bad kid. I
No,
was
same,
just like
same. I was exactly the same way.
I look like
The
such
straight A students who
Yeah.
they're the ones who are sneaky because they want to go get drunk with their friends in that backyard field, but
Yeah.
they want to make sure that they still get an A- on their math test the next Monday.
Yeah. No, I've always been that way. So like
Did you get in trouble?
I was friends with, so I blamed it on my brother.
Yes. As every sister should.
But I got away with it because no one would expect me to have that. But my brother, Brian, to this day is like
that is
the heat for
good.
you. Like they
That is
were
really
all
good.
yours. So I'm like, I know. But I was like, sorry.
Sorry, love ya.
I mean, God forbid my parents don't listen to this, mom and dad. Sign off now. I have a tattoo that they don't know about.
Stop. I love that.
Mm-hmm. If they
Where is
find
it?
out.
Oh my God, Mary. Oh, it's so cute.
It's kind of saggy now at this point because I didn't expect to have babies afterwards. I got it out when I was all crazy, but my parents have no idea.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, mom and dad,
so
if you're listening, don't.
Wait, so they've like never seen that in like a swimsuit or something?
No, I wear like very modest swimsuits when I'm around them now.
Oh my gosh, that is really funny.
The one thing that came in handy was like right after I got it, a year after I got it, I got pregnant. So
it's time to let it shine. Let that thing out, Mare. Let it breathe. Let it live some life.
Nope. When I'm with Kev, it will breathe. Like I don't even talk about it on Instagram. So if all my Instagram followers, hi, hello, welcome. Don't ask me about it because I will not ever talk about it openly on my stories because my parents
that is
cannot
so
know.
Good.
I know they won't listen to this, so it doesn't matter. But
yes,
they
that's a good one.
Yeah, Kevin
that's way juicier than my thoughts.
No, my husband always tells me, he was like, why don't you tell them? And I'm like, they don't need to know. Like,
yeah. And you know what? That's fun. You can have your own secrets still, even as an adult, even as a mom.
Well, they wouldn't be happy about it. They don't like tattoos. So I'm like, why would they need to know? They're never going to see it. Like if I'm wearing a bathing suit that is going to reveal that, like for me around my parents, then I won't. So it's easy enough for me to buy like a really cute bathing suit that will cover it. So I'm like, they don't need to know. They'll just
that is so funny.
And also I was threatened to be taken out of the will. So I'm not going to share.
Okay. My parents are like that. I don't have tattoos, but they used to do that to my, like, if you get a tattoo in college, like, we're not going to help you pay for anything or like, which it was, I've never loved anything that much, like get on my body, but I love other people's tattoos. I'm always like, sweet, like, let's see them. But that is a good one.
See, I forget sometimes what it even says, but I'm like, what? I was 26 and I was like, F this, let's go. Let's
do it. It was your time to shine.
YOLO. Only to get pregnant and for it to like kind of droop in certain areas. But hey, whatever. At this point, I don't care. I got a C-section scar and I got a beaten up vagina. So
I mean, oh damn, girl, get it. You're gonna get your bejeweledness and it will be amazing
at some point. Yeah, just when the heck that's gonna be. Ooh. I need like a vacation when I do that.
You need to find someone who specializes in that to come on the podcast so that you can, learn the deets of what to expect.
My OB does
the vagina monologues.
Yeah, he does it. He does plastics, and thankfully it'd be covered by insurance because I don't want.
There you go.
Hi, what? No, it's not even my baby. It's the cat. What?
Oh my gosh, I thought it was your child.
I know. What? Go lay down. Yeah, no, my OB does plastic so he can get it covered by insurance. Thank God. I just don't want to do it because I'll need it's a recovery.
Yeah, do it when you're mentally prepared for it.
And when my kids can my husband can run the ship.
Yes.
I don't feel like doing anything. Oh my God. I need to do it and then go hang out in a hotel for a week.
That's actually genius. Do you follow Big Little Feelings on Instagram? Like I love how they always do that. Like their little staycations for a night at a hotel. Yeah. They're like the mom. I'm like, that is genius. Yeah. I've definitely done that too, but I'm like, I love that. You got to do, okay. That's going to be your next solo rejuvenation. No pun intended.
Vagina rejuvenation.
I love that we started talking out about birth trauma and we're ending talking about vaginal rejuvenation. If that is not how moms truly have conversations together, there's nothing more real than that.
Hey, it's just part of the game. Part of the game. But
it's wild. And you guys, anyone listening to this, go leave Mary a review. It is, you always hear that on podcasts. I've had my podcast, The Cait Take, for 2 years now. And it's a lot of work. And those of us who do it, we freaking love it. But it's like, go leave Mary a 5-star written review wherever you listen to her. It really does make a difference. Like, it takes you 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Go do that for her, because it's a great thing that you're doing here. And for the listeners, it's kind of your fun way and important way to give back too. So that's my PSA for you, Maris. All the listeners here, go leave Mary a review.
Thank you. And same thing, if you go and listen to Cait's podcast,
yes,
same thing, vice versa, because her podcast is kick ass.
Oh, thank you.
Yay.
Another episode down and way more to go. But thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to help support this podcast, I would love for you to subscribe. I'd love for you to share it with others and post about it on your own social media, or leave a rating and review. I cannot tell you how helpful and how appreciated those things are for me. Of course, to catch all the latest from me, you can follow me over on Instagram at The Very Merry Life, over on TikTok, The Very Merry Life. And even if you wanted to check out my monthly newsletter, you can do so by subscribing over at theverymerrylife.com. I'll see you next week. Stay tuned for more honest, raw, real chit chat. I have some amazing moms lined up coming on, and shit's going to get fun. So buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be good.